Hello everyone, this is Joe from Scarecrow Joe's Studio. Welcome back to part 5 of our paper mache troll tutorial. We're going to pick up right where we left off, but first we'll go over the tools and materials that you're going to need for this section of the tutorial. Alright, obviously again you're going to need your troll that you have already built and the troll or Viking helmet that we built in part 4 of this tutorial. You're going to need paper mache clay, paper mache paste, your Sculpey or any of the other polymer oven baked clays that you choose to use, masking tape, a cardboard toilet paper or paper towel tube, a marker, some various sculpting or smoothing tools, a blade of some sort, here's a box cutter, pair of scissors, that might come in handy as well. And of course you're going to need your hot glue gun, hot glue sticks, your little cup of cold water, and then a couple of pieces of your corrugated cardboard. Now this is not very thick, it's not too thin. It's not as thin as the flexible thin cardboard that you get in food packaging like cereal boxes. This is a post office UPS shipping box, and that's pretty much the perfect thickness. Okay, first thing that I want to do is get his Viking helmet glued onto his head, and I'm going to achieve that by using my hot glue gun. So I'm going to position the hat onto his head where I want it to be. And as you may notice, and here let me flip this over so that you can see that, there are some gaps in there where the hot glue isn't going to be able to attach completely to its head. Don't worry about that. I'm going to show you how to fix that. So basically I'm just taking my hot glue gun, positioning the helmet onto his head, and where I can, where there's enough area in there, I'm just squirting in some hot glue around the rim of his helmet. Now you may have to wait a few seconds for this to set up before you go ahead and turn it and do the back of it. So I'm just going to hold that in place. And I'm putting some pressure down on it too, to make sure that it does get a good solid bond there. And once that has set up enough so it's not going to fall off of his head, I'm just going to take my hot glue gun and again around the areas where I can attach it with the hot glue, I'm just going to squirt in some hot glue around those areas. A couple areas here where the ears are. We'll let that sit and cool completely. Okay, so I have attached the helmet to his head using some hot glue around the areas that I can. Now with these gaps in here, go ahead and get your masking tape. If you have a thicker masking tape, like this is I don't know, half an inch. If you have thicker masking tape, go ahead and use that. If not, you can use your thinner half inch or 1 inch masking tape. Not a big deal. I've already cut some pieces, and basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the masking tape and I'm going to cover in those areas where it hasn't completely attached to the helmet or to the head, where the helmet has not completely attached to the head. And basically I'm just blocking in those areas with some masking tape. So that's what you would do if you have these areas, and more than likely you will. Just take your masking tape, block it in all the way around. It doesn't matter if you get the masking tape onto your strip mached helmet, because we're going to cover this entire thing with clay. Alright, once you have that attached, it's time to move forward with, we're going to go ahead and we need to sculpt in the helmet, the horns, his ears. So I think what I'm going to do is, I'm going to start with his ears. I'm going to go ahead and sculpt in his ears. I'll move to his helmet, and then I'll do his arms, and then feet last. So feet will be last. So with his ears, I've just got my clay here. And basically, I'm just going to go ahead and apply a layer of clay over his paper mached, strip mached ears. I want to go ahead and cover the entire ear, both ears, front and back. Once I have applied that layer of clay over the ears, I'm just going to go in with my paper mache paste and a small paintbrush and smooth that in and kind of blend it where the seam is. And I'm noticing I have some bits of hot glue in there, so I'm going to cover that up. Now, as you can see, once we apply the clay to this guy, the ears are a lot more bulky than just the plain ear with the strip mache. I'm going to do both sides of the ear, just like I did the front. Alright, I've got that on there. I'm just going to go ahead and use my fingers. You can use any of your sculpting tools that you have to smooth this in as well, but I'm just going to use my fingers because it'll smooth it enough where it'll still give it enough texture, so it'll have the appearance of kind of a rougher skin texture for a troll, basically. Do the same thing with the front. Now, if you wanted to give your ears a little more three-dimensional feel to them, you can use the tip of a marker. I'm using this black Sharpie, and you can make an indentation inside the ear here. And there you have it. The other thing that you can do, if you wanted to make this more three-dimensional, is take little bits of pieces of your clay, and you can form a coil, a thin coil. You can form a coil, and you can add that around the perimeter of your ear, and that will give it a more three-dimensional look to it instead of it just being a flat ear. So I'm going to go ahead and do that all the way around the perimeter of his ear. I've got that little coil all the way around the perimeter of the ear. Again, I'm going to go ahead and take my paintbrush, my small paintbrush dipped in the paper mache paste, and I'm just going to kind of blend that in a little bit and smooth it out, especially where your pieces of clay meet on the coils there, so that it looks like it has pretty much one continuous piece, instead of a bunch of different pieces of coiled clay around the ear. If you take a look at from the back, that's how it's going to look from the back. If you want to smooth that out even more in the back, go ahead and take your paste and smooth that out even more in the back so that it looks like a cohesive piece. Just take your fingers and you can smooth it out even more. But there you go. You take a look at that ear. That's how you'll just give it a little bit more three-dimensional feel to it. I'm going to go ahead and do the other ear the same way. Both the ears are done. I smoothed them in using my paper mache paste and a paintbrush. There's the backs of them. I paid special attention to the area where the ear and the head meet. Make sure you get some clay on there and smooth that in to make it look cohesive. And when this dries, it's going to give that a really solid, cohesive bond so that those ears will remain attached to his head. All right, next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start applying clay over the entire helmet. But before we apply it to the top of the helmet, what we're going to do is underneath this ridge here, all the way around where we've squirted in the hot glue, we're going to apply some more paper mache clay in there and smooth it out so that this helmet, after that clay dries, it will also form a really nice tight bond to his head. Okay, so I went in and applied some clay underneath the brim of his helmet all the way around. And then, as usual, I took my brush with some paste, smoothed it out. And then for that part underneath, I did end up taking one of my little sculpting tools here, and I smoothed it out even more. Just make sure that you get a cohesive blending there of where your helmet meets the head. And I did that again, I did that all the way around. And then I went in after I smoothed it out, because I want his eyebrows that I created were already dry to stand out. So I smoothed that out and I made a little more definition around that as well. So next step, I'm going to go in, I'm going to apply a layer of clay over the entire helmet, including the brim of the helmet. Alright, I've applied the layer of clay on my helmet, all the way around my helmet. And I did end up putting a bit more bulk here to give it sort of a more pronounced brim of the helmet. And as well as the front of the helmet as well. I did that same thing there. Now what I'm going to do is go ahead and go in once again with my paper mache paste and my paintbrush and apply that to the layer of clay on the helmet and on the brim of the helmet to smooth that out. So I've got that all smooth over with the paste. And I'm just going to go in and I want it to be more, even smoother than that. So I'm just taking a plastic spoon. Plastic spoons like this work really great if you're smoothing something that has a more round shape to it because of the contour, the natural contour of the spoon. So I'm going to go ahead and smooth all this out even more using my spoon. If I feel like this is getting dried out, I can dip my spoon in the backside of my spoon into the paste and apply a little bit more paste on it and smooth it out even more. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that to the entire helmet here, as well as around the brim. Alright, there you have it. His helmet is covered in clay. I bulked out the brim of his helmet all the way around. There's the back. Smooth that clay out with paper mache paste using a paintbrush. And then I went in with a spoon, plastic spoon, smooth that out even more. And then underneath here, when I was smoothing all that out up here, I displaced some of it underneath. So I just went in again. If that happens to you, just go in again with your paintbrush with the paste on it. And you can redefine those areas where the clay got displaced when you were smoothing out the top part of it. And I kind of, while I was doing that, I kept hitting his ears, so I had to keep going back and smoothing out his ears. So I think at this point in our tutorial, we're going to let this dry, his helmet and his ears, before we move on and sculpt out the arms or the feet. Otherwise, we're just going to have to keep going back and re-smoothing things, and that's going to be counterproductive. So what we're going to do, we're going to just sit, I'm going to sit my troll aside, and I'm going to put him in front of fans so that he can dry completely. And probably, I don't know, 24 hours he should be dry enough so I could go back in and continue and finish out the sculpt. But from this point, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create his separate elements of the drinking horn out of polymer clay and his axe using paper mache method. Alright, so there's a couple of different ways here that you can make an axe. You can do an axe out of 100% paper mache using a toilet paper tube or a paper towel tube and some corrugated cardboard, which I'm going to show you right now. And the other way that you can make an axe is actually by using a piece of a branch. This is a very small, thin branch. You can use a bigger, thicker, just piece of wood, piece of, you know, a branch. I live in Tahoe, so right in my backyard, I just go out there and I find these bits and pieces of stuff that I end up incorporating in my art. So I'm going to bring him forward so you can get the idea. So if this is going to be the axe handle, he would basically be holding the axe, and we would glue in the axe or the handle of the axe just like that, and we could create a polymer clay axe blade. That's one way to do it. But let me show you the paper mache method without using pieces of wood or polymer clay. So with a toilet paper tube, because I feel like this is going to be long enough to use for an axe handle, but I don't need it this thick, obviously. So I'm going to cut this in half. And then I'm going to determine how thick I want my axe handle. Obviously, by doing it this way, you have a little bit more control over the thickness of your axe handle and how it will fit into the hand of your troll. So something like that. So I've determined I don't need all that material to make it that thick, so I'm going to go ahead and I'll trim off a portion of it. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to roll it into the thickness that I want it to be. It's about, I don't know, cigar shaped, and I think that's going to be pretty good. So I'm going to go with that. So I'm going to take a couple of pieces of masking tape here, which again, I should have already had those cut off and sitting on the edge of my table, but I didn't. I'm just going to wrap this thing in masking tape. You can hot glue it. You can hot glue your edges together. That would be fine. But the masking tape method works really well, because we're going to be applying paper mache clay over this. So keeping that in mind, when you roll that up and you have it into the desired shape that's going to fit into the hand of your troll, sort of like that. Keep in mind that once we do apply that thin layer of clay, and that's all it's going to be, is a thin layer of clay, that this will bulk out a little bit more. So I don't want that hollow on the bottom, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a piece of my masking tape and cover that up. So there you go. The axe blade will be up here, and you can position this lower if you want in the hand, whatever you desire. I'm going to set him aside. I'm going to get my piece of corrugated cardboard out. That's going to be the top where I'm going to insert the axe blade. It does help if you have a reference photo. If you don't, if you're trying to figure out the shape of an axe or the shape of the head of the axe, there are many different variations. You can do a double-sided one. I'm just going to do a single-sided one, just a basic shape of an axe. Alright, so just using the edge of my cardboard here, I'm just going to form out a basic shape of the axe. This is going to be sort of the base of the axe here, where I'm going to insert it into my handle. So kind of using that as a reference. I'm going to let it flare out a little bit. Pretty rudimentary, sort of an axe shape, but that's going to be fine for what we need. You can get as intricate on this as you want. I'm just going to get another piece of cardboard here so I don't cut through my my table. And there you have it. Basic axe shape. Now we want to insert this down into the handle, obviously. So what I'm going to do is with my scissors, I'm going to come in here and make a slit on both sides. So that my axe handle can fit in there. So there you go. There you go. For good measure, to get that in there nice and secure, I'm going to take some hot glue and I'm going to squeeze some hot glue in there on both sides and on the top. Now you could take the time and strip mache this whole thing, just like we did with the Viking helmet, and that will make it a lot more secure. And actually that is what I recommend. I do recommend that you put at least one layer of strip mache on this thing, let it sit out in front of a fan and let it dry in front of a fan, and then you can go in and apply your thin layer of paper mache clay. So, but for now, we're going to go ahead, or I'm going to go ahead and sit this aside. And I'll show you the other process on how to make an axe using a piece of wood and polymer clay that you bake in the oven. And then we'll move forward and we'll also make the drinking horn as well. Alright, so creating an axe using a piece of wood, like a small branch, and some polymer clay. So this is the other way that you can create your axe if you're making an axe. I start off again with just balling up some clay. Probably golf ball size will probably be enough clay for this process. And also, as you can see, I have my baking sheet here and a piece of parchment paper, so that it'll be easier for me once I'm done creating this axe and the drinking horn to carry it upstairs to the kitchen and put it in the oven without trying to juggle things. So that's what I recommend that you do as well, just to make it easier on yourself. Alright, so I've got my golf ball sized piece of polymer clay, and I'm going to go ahead and squish it out a little bit. And I'm just kind of shaping it into the form that I want it to be, so the axe shape form. And I'm just pressing this down onto my little branch here. So you just keep working it until you get the shape that you want for your axe. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because I'm going to use the paper mache axe. Obviously, if you are going to use this method, you're going to spend some more time on this and shape that out and smooth it out. I'm just giving you some ideas. So that's basically how it would look if you're using the piece of wood. Okay, and then you just go ahead and you can put this in the oven. You can remove it because you have your indentation, so remove it and then stick that in the oven according to the instructions for your specific polymer clay that you are using. Alright, let's move on and let's make the drinking horn. So with the drinking horn, I'm going to need more clay than just a golf ball size. Maybe, I'm thinking maybe a golf ball and a half a golf ball size, if that makes any kind of sense. So again, I'm just starting out, working it, warming it up a little bit, making it more pliable and softer and easier to form and shape. Now you're probably familiar with a Viking drinking horn and what they look like. But if you are not, and if you need some kind of a reference, you can Google Viking drinking horns and look at all kinds of images of them, and work off of that reference. But that's what I do. I start again with the ball of clay, and I'm going to form it into the drinking horn. So I want my drinking horn on the bottom to be curved, and I want it thicker up on top and round, of course. And I'm flattening out the top now. And I want the appearance of the drinking horn to actually be hollow. So you can use, you could use your finger. Just using my thumb here, and I'm pressing into the center without puncturing through the sides. You don't want to puncture through the sides. So I'm just creating the cavity there for the drinking horn. And then after I've done that, I'm going in and I'm pinching around the sides to make them thinner. Pretty simple technique. After you've got your cavity in there, or your hollow portion, then you can come in on the outside. Just take your fingers and smooth it out. So I have formed my drinking horn, made it hollow, shaped it, and it's going to sit right on in there. Inside of his hand, just like that. So it looks like he's about to take a drink. So I kind of like that. So with that shape in mind, in his hand, I'm going to remove it from his hand gently. And I'm going to go ahead and take that upstairs, get it in the oven, and bake it off. Alright, so while I am baking that off and then letting the drinking horn cool after baking that off, I'm going to take the time and strip mache my little axe here, because this is the one that I'm going to be using. So, not going to spend a whole lot of time showing you this. It's pretty self-explanatory. And like I said, do at least one layer of strip mache on your axe. It will help, it will strengthen it, and with that strength, it will allow you to apply your paper mache clay over this and sculpt it out put the details in there. You can sculpt in like wood grain in your axe handle here, and then smooth out the actual axe head, and it's just going to make it really nice and sturdy and sound when you go ahead and apply your clay to sculpt that out. Alright, I have applied some strip mache to my axe. I'm going to set this aside to dry. I just wanted to show you my little drying stand here for things like little pieces like this that you're going to strip mache the entire piece. If you have a grate or something like that where airflow gets all the way around it, it'll dry completely within probably 12 hours or so, maybe even less than that if you put it in front of a fan and put it on top of a grate. I'm not sure what this thing is that I'm using. I picked it up at a thrift store for like 25 cents. I think maybe it belonged in the kitchen cabinet or something like that, or maybe a refrigerator, don't even know. But I saw it at a thrift store and I picked it up because I thought it would be great to just place these little items like that and have airflow all the way around it, and it works great. So that's what I recommend. If you have some kind of a grate, use that, stick it in front of a fan, and within probably 6 to 8 hours, this thing will be completely dry and hard and ready for you to go ahead and apply your clay and start your sculpting process. There's my drinking horn. Baked off. It's hard. This guy's ready to do some drinking. But that's going to be a wrap for this segment here, guys. Next one coming up, we're going to finish out this sculpt. The horns, the helmet. We'll put in the details with sculpting clay over the helmet. We're going to sculpt out the arms and the feet. Let that dry completely. And then we're going to pretty much be in the home stretch from there. I'm going to fabricate some clothing to put on him and get him painted, and we'll go from there. Wanted to give you guys a quick look though at the other troll that I've been working on. This is the one that's going to be the gift for my orthodontist. I did finish up the paint, except for the eyes. I need to do some more painting on the eyes, but he's pretty much painted. I did put some butt cheeks on him. I need to put the teeth in and paint those, and then fabricate the braces for him. And then in this hand, he's going to be holding some dental floss. And in the other hand, he's going to be holding his toothbrush. And then I'm probably going to fabricate some clothing to put on him. But when he's completely done, I'll show you how he looks. But one thing that I do want to recommend is that when you're applying or attaching your separate elements, such as the drinking horn that we'll be attaching and the axe for the Viking, get some Loctite super glue or something like this. And I do recommend that you get the gel control. It's easier to deal with. This is great for attaching these separate elements instead of using just hot glue. Hot glue, it'll work, but more than likely, as time goes by, these things are just they're gonna come off. They're not gonna stay solid. But if you're using something like Loctite, those things are gonna be on there for a good amount of time. So get some Loctite or some kind of super glue or something like that, and that's really gonna help you out with that. Alright, so as always, thanks for watching, guys. If you have not subscribed and you like the content on my channel, please consider subscribing. Give the videos a like. And I hope you're enjoying them. I hope that you're finding them useful and helpful and gaining some knowledge and some good information. But that's a wrap for this one. Coming soon, we'll finish this up. So we'll catch you in the next one.